Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back to another special episode of our series called Doctor Talks. One of the things I want to let you guys all know today that today's guest is not actually a doctor, but she is a pioneer in one of the newest emerging fields of medicine, and this is why we're bringing her here today. You're going to have to search long and hard to find somebody that knows more about the subject matter today than our guest here. But just a couple of things of maintenance before we get going here. Facebook is really hammering on us, guys. I tried to share this show out to several groups and pages just before showtime, and I'm finding out the feedback immediately was that the links are not being made available. So give us a hand, help us share this message out while we're live streaming. It tends to work a little bit better, and you guys don't get punished as much for sharing when we're actually doing a live stream. So we've been hearing a lot about science and medicine and measures and those kinds of things. Today, we're going to bring back the circle of conversation back to something that matters to us all an awful lot, which is the humanity that we have to try to maintain in this crazy upside down world that we're living in. Welcome to the show today, Michele. I'm really been eager to speak with you. For you guys that don't know Michele out there, some of you will. We've been talking a little bit in organizing, getting this show ready, and we can talk for hours because there's so much going on. This is how much she has a value she has to bring to us here today. So I'm really excited. Thanks for joining us, Michele.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's such a different conversation that we get to have with you. You are different, have a different perspective and outlook and take on everything that's going on around us. And one of the things that I think within the first 2 minutes of talking with you on the phone before we got this organized was trauma. And this is your specialty. And one of it's everywhere. Every person we see is dealing with trauma and nobody's talking about it.
There are a couple of people out there, I think, that are running courses and various things. If anyone in the field of trauma knows exactly what's going on, we just aren't all that common. And the field of trauma has really been only in the forefront for about 15 to 20 years. And before that, it was kind of amnesiac, starting with Freud, and then God knows where it went for 100 years, and then somebody else picked it up, and then it kind of fell asleep again. And so then it sort of rose to the foreground again of study. And so people who actually specialize in it, you don't find they're all that common. We do find, and then we have frontline workers, and we have those that are teaching. And so we don't have a lot of frontline workers, but those that are there, they know very well what's going on.
And that was one of the things that I honed in on immediately back to my days being a frontline worker, was that, and this is what struck me, is we all recognize it. We see it. every day as a frontline worker, we see trauma in almost every person that we're dealing with in a situation. And we understand and we recognize that as the symptom of whatever injury or event that has transpired, whether it's a broken leg, a broken arm, a car crash. The incident is different, but the trauma is creates a set pattern of behavior and mindset and a whole lot of things. And this is the part that nobody's talking about. We've been taught how to recognize trauma, and in an emergency situation, we're taught how to deal with it on a scene. But that's where the end of the conversation is pretty much right there.
Yeah. Well, in medical school, they don't usually even hear the word, so that's not part of, kind of a medical training. First responders have a far better perspective in seeing trauma and recognizing trauma. And you're exactly right. When you, like, causal factors are huge. You have this wide range of causal factors. Trauma practitioners have to get very creative in terms of what we do because of that, but there is a set sort of symptomology that goes with trauma. So not every adverse life event is going to be a traumatic one. I mean, it's a really overused word right at this moment. And PTSD is another catchphrase. Well, PTSD. It really has more to do with longevity than anything else. But most people who suffer trauma don't go on to develop full-blown PTSD. And so it doesn't mean that their symptoms are any less or any different or any of those things. It simply means that they don't go on to that. 25 years from now, they're not still relating that traumatic experience to everything that's going on today. But the symptomology is very specific with traumatic reaction, and what we're seeing now, people that specialize in trauma, even many psychologists who know anything about it, they've been up there trying to warn as well. Many of them that they're calling it a trauma tsunami. I actually spoke to a police officer, an inspector, actually a few weeks back. And I said, we're calling this, that's what we're calling this. And he just very seriously said, that's what it is. So
well, explain to the people exactly what that is and what you mean by that, because it's significant.
It is because if you have no knowledge of trauma and how it works, most people are not aware that this can be turned on and off at will at this particular point. But what trauma actually is a threat, either to, or perceived threat, either to one's own safety or the safety of a loved one, and to the point where it completely overwhelms the ability to cope. And generally, it sends a person into raw survival. The midbrain is going to go off and it's going to start screaming, there's danger here. And it's going to set the nervous system off, readying it to run, to fight, to freeze, whatever is going to happen. And then if that doesn't dissipate, the nervous system isn't going back to normal. That fear reaction is staying stuck in the nervous system. And so you've got your body flooding with chemicals, and it's also driving all kinds of decisions and other things in life. And sometimes people aren't aware that it's happening. And so because it doesn't go full cycle and go through the cognitive part of the brain, the reasoning, like if you run into, say you're going out your backyard and you see out of your peripheral a snake that's poisonous and it's ready to strike. And the midbrain has something called the amygdala, and it's our fear center, and it starts to go off screaming danger. The whole nervous system gets ignited. That's generally the sympathetic part of the nervous system. It could be the other part, but generally that, ready for fight or flight. And then we look again and we say, oh, it's a garden hose. Well, then the parasympathetic.
No, we've got a little bit of an interruption here. I hope this is just temporary. I'm not sure if you can still hear me, Michelle, but you're frozen up on your end there. I'm sorry, guys. I do know that Facebook has been doing some updates today. My phone is not working for Facebook. They've been trying to very hard, making it very hard to share links and stuff today. So I'm not sure. Hopefully she can get back in here for a second, or in a second. This was a conversation that I'd really been looking forward to for more than a month. There's so much that's affecting us. So they've popped her right out. Hopefully she'll just be able to rejoin us, reboot back in. Um, so to just kind of add my little 2 cents into what she was kind of getting at there is even though the causes are different for trauma, it creates a pattern of a scientific and a trackable pattern, and I've seen the effects of this and what it does to people's cognitive abilities, like after an accident, even though they may not be physically damaged in that accident, their cognitive ability is out to lunch. They can't think rationally. They make very poor decisions. The things they say don't make sense, and this will go up and down, varying to the effects of the trauma. And when we look around us everywhere, this is actually what we're seeing. We're seeing people trying to stumble through life, dealing with different levels and degrees of abuse and trauma. And when you try to address them or to communicate or interact or engage with them, they're not who they ordinarily are. They are operating from a place of fear and trauma and abuse, really, literally. Uh, so this was stuff that I was really looking forward to her explaining better, and hopefully she makes it back in. But these are things that I see, even when I'm driving around the town, the city, or wherever I'm at. Everywhere I look, it's like a filter. I'm seeing people that are just dealing with trauma in any way, shape, or form that they can, and it's just continuously, the cycle keeps perpetuating itself again and again and again and again. It's like getting hit over and over and over and over and over again. It's no wonder we cannot make rational decisions. We can't think things out clearly. We're tired. We start to justify behaviors that we ordinarily wouldn't. Even within ourselves, we say, oh, I'm just grouchy, or I'm just irritable, or things are just getting to me. And this residual effect is perpetuating itself through the whole universe as we know it. And how can we expect others to deal and cope when we are not being able to deal and cope? So, man, I'm really hoping she is able to get back here. Some of the things that we were talking about was recognizing that and being able to meet people where they're at, in a different way. With one simple little shift in how we word something can make all of the difference sometimes in reaching somebody or alienating them further. We've pretty much all figured out the hard way that trying to convince somebody, trying to show them the evidence, show them this, that, and the other thing, convince them that that you're correct, you're right. Pretty much the instant you ask them, why are you wearing that, or why are you doing that, you've already triggered an emotional response that's going to get you a negative reaction. You've probably already lost their attention span and their ability to communicate right there already. But think about this. If you ask that person instead, man, it must really be torture, spending 8 hours a day in that mask. They will open up like a flower, and then you'll have an opportunity to actually connect with them, because they're not operating in a system of rationale right now. They're operating and surviving based on emotion. Almost everything that they're dealing with in most of us are right now are dealing with emotional abuse, emotional attacks, through the physical, through exactly what we see in front of us. So it's absolutely unfair of us to be aggressive to all of those people that are out there. So that's one of the big things. It's approach can make so much difference to whether we can actually connect with them. By that, I'm not encouraging people to go out there and fake sympathy. That's not it at all. Put ourselves in their shoes and crawl down into the pit with them. Show them empathy. Sympathy is dismissive. Look for the silver lining, and we'll get through it. No, get in there and feel it with them, and you will have somebody that will connect with you, and they will open up, and they will tell you where this abuse is affecting them most. And when you can then answer their questions, then you're going to have an opportunity to save somebody, to bring somebody back, right? It's amazing the difference in what a couple of words and a little bit of perspective, right? If y'all are tired of arguing with people, just show them some empathy, some genuine empathy, and smile. And it's amazing how much further that will go. Well, I'm guessing that Michelle is not having a great go of trying to get back in here. Geez, there were so many things that she's the one to speak to you guys about. So I guess I'll rattle on a little bit here, a little bit longer here about some of the other things that are going on, some of the other stuff that we're working on. The response to the rest of the series of Doctor Talks, folks, has been absolutely nothing short of amazing, absolutely amazing, in spite of, in the face of all of this censorship and ridiculousness that they're pulling, the message is still getting out. We're getting responses literally from all over the world. More doctors, getting to meet some of the people that are at the top of the food chain as far as for fighting back. I'll see if I can't bring her in another way here. Bear with me, guys. See if I can reach her. That's quite odd. Who was on episode 9? Good question. Honestly, I've done so many, I would have to look. Just bear with me for a second. I'll actually let you know. Usually my shows have a little better flow than this, guys. But did they pull one? I think Dr. Hodgkinson was number 9 in that series, where she got put into place number 9. The Doctor Talks, it's been absolutely amazing, and it's been a double-edged sword. Oh, I think we've got her back.
That was the strangest thing I ever experienced.
Welcome to my world again, Michelle.
Thank you. Everything went black. The Wi-Fi went down. My computer went black. Everything shut off, including the power, only in my office. The rest of the house was fine. Yeah.
You must be the most dangerous woman in Canada.
Or something. I've never experienced anything like that. So if it happens again, I'm so sorry. It took me quite a bit to get the Wi-Fi going again and get back on. So I really apologize.
Oh, no need for you to apologize. I actually kind of apologize to the audience. Usually I'm a babbling idiot, but all of a sudden I was kind of sitting here with my chin wagging going, because I was so engrossed in what you were saying that I tried to mumble my way through it a little bit, but
I'm sure you did fine. So, should I pick up with the garden hose again, or?
Please. I tried to carry on the theme, but it's much better from you.
Well, if you look again and you see it's a garden hose, the parasympathetic nervous system does the opposite, and it's going to kick in and it's going to even the system out. And then the emotional part of the brain is going to talk to the frontal lobe, the reasoning part, and he's going to say, okay, I got this story, and they're going to store it in long-term memory. Well, what if the threat doesn't stop? What then? And that's the issue. So the system will stay turned on. It never does go through the reasoning part of the brain. It doesn't complete its cycle. So if you're trying to reason with people by intellectually, you're going to get absolutely nowhere. Not with somebody who's traumatized. You're not. And so, because it hasn't gotten that far, and you're dealing with a fear reaction, and so it sometimes isn't even the same part of the brain that cognitively registers that they're feeling fear. I mean, some people know that they are, others don't, because it's a reaction. They think they're right.
Well, and this is where you're really hitting on a major point here. One of the most common question I get asked: why can't I reach somebody? Why can't I reach them? Why are they not hearing me? Why? This is exactly what you're addressing here right now.
Yeah, and even when people go into stores, they'll say to me, "Gee whiz, I just wanted to, give some information on my perspective on things, and I got my head bitten off, and the person was rude, and it was, well." It's all going to be about how you make them feel, not about what you're trying to tell them. Because the second you bring that subject up, what you're actually doing is activating a traumatic response. That mind is going to go danger, and that response is you're either going to get a fight response, or they're going to put up the hand and say, "Watch my back." They're going to, that's a, flight, or they're going to freeze with terror. Children, young people, and especially, I'm seeing a lot of freeze right now. A lot of freeze, much more than I normally see. In fact, one young man was so frozen, like he sat in front of me, and his muscles were almost atrophied, and he didn't move anything but his thumbs.
You've really made sense of a couple of things that I've been, in my hillbilly way trying to explain to people for a very long time. Is fear is a natural thing. It doesn't matter how big or bad or tough you are. You hear a bump in the middle of the night when you're asleep, you bolt upright, and it's fear that does that. And you will stay in that state until you understand and you can process and make sense of what caused that bump in the night. Then your system comes down and you can go back to sleep. You've identified it, and so it doesn't matter how tough you think you are. Fear is going to override everything when that happens.
That's exactly correct. It does. It overrides everything. And I try to give examples so people sort of understand. That is a really hard concept for people to get their head wrapped around. And I honestly, I know it is. Sometimes you can study trauma for 2 years before you go, "Oh my gosh, I think I get this," because we're used to reasoning with people. We're used to, and not being able to. I had one husband, wonderful husband, by the way. I mean, he was a great husband, but he told me every time he tried to talk to his wife about this one thing, he said, "She just gets nasty." And he said, "And she's not even sorry." Of course, that made me chuckle a little bit, because I said, "Well, every time you bring it up, you're enacting. That's a traumatic reaction you're getting. That's a fight response, and she doesn't have the ability to go back and reason whether this was a reasonable response or not." So I just said, if you could, stop poking the bear until I got time to deal with this, that would be great. But so she didn't. I think she knew from what he said, but to her, that's raw survival. The sense of safety becomes so shattered, and it's kind of categorized by feelings of helplessness. It usually has, carries elements of abusive power of some type. So you have helplessness. You oftentimes have hopelessness. You have powerlessness. You have a shattered sense of safety. Many times, if I would ask somebody, "Well, if you could have anything in the world that you want, what do you think it would be?" More often than not, they'll tell me they just want to feel safe. So it isn't just when you activate it. That's their driving. Like, they will make decisions based on what their system is doing, and sometimes they even feel they're betraying themselves. Well, I don't even believe this. Why did I do this, or why did I? why didn't I stand up to this person? I don't even believe in what I just did. And so because you're right, that's exactly what happens. Once, like I tend to use the fist, I'll say, well, this is the brainstem and the information goes in, this just raw information, and it hits the emotional brain, and the amygdala starts to fire, 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 and then you flip your lid, and guess what? This is now in control.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, we can see people go from 0 to warp 3 in an instant. That's not a conscious thought out process when that happens. It's 100% instinctual, and we're caught aback and we're thinking this person is just being a jerk, and really it's not. It's just straight up their survival instinct, even though they can't comprehend or process the emotional roller coaster that they've literally just been launched off of. For most of us, we tend to measure from the world when we felt normal, and those kinds of responses and engagements and events were very, very rare in life. We're very peaceable people. We didn't have conflict, these kinds of things, and now it's almost everywhere. If you're not stepping on following the line, then you're going to have these kinds of events and engagements almost anywhere you go in any environment. This is almost the predictability of it when you step outside of your house anymore, that if you're not following the exact line you're being told, you're going to be dealing with what I'm seeing now as a trauma reaction. They're not angry at me. They're having a trauma reaction because I'm engaging in their fear immediately. Whether I say or do anything, that's a trigger to their fear.
Right. You're eliciting fear response. And here's the interesting thing about it is that trauma or anger with grief is not assaultive, but anger with trauma is always assaultive, even if it's nonviolent. So if you kind of bring that subject up, you can get, there are several different traumatic responses you might get, but if you wind up getting a fight response, it's likely to be brutal.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So, and people really are having a hard time understanding because it's really rampant out there. And, they're saying, well, whatever happened to, it's okay to have an opinion, and whatever happened to discussing anything. I mean, like politics. I mean, there was a time we used to all have dinner together, all have different political opinions, have some really great heated, discussions back and forth. So we didn't lose friendships over it. We didn't get this, so this, what we're witnessing now is, and the mental health calls, they call it that. I don't call people who suffer from trauma I don't use those words, because it's actually a normal reaction to an abnormal event. Like grief would be a normal reaction to what we would consider a normal event. Trauma is actually a normal reaction to abnormal events. So you have to wonder, is the reaction the problem, or the fact that we happen to be living in a very toxic environment, toxic culture, toxic everything that doesn't make sense, and things happening to people that causing them to feel powerless and helpless and so on. So is it the reaction the problem, or is the environment the problem? That's a question that needs to be asked.
It needs to be asked at every level. And because, I mean, from me and my perspective, just like, and this is what I was speaking to before while you were away, when I drive around the city now, I mean, all I see is people at dealing or trying to deal with varying degrees of trauma. I used to think it was varying degrees of education or ignorance, but now I'm realizing more and more so that it's varying degrees of trauma. So this has now changed how I perceive and deal with these people immensely. And this is the power of what we can do when people are asking, how can we reach people? What can we do? Identifying and looking at the world through a slightly different filter is really going to help folks, have less of these adverse events.
Well, I can give a few tips. When I go into a store, usually there's a young person standing behind the cash register, and I will say it's a mask that's the issue right now. I won't say, I won't hit them with information, but what I will do is I will say, gosh, it must be really tough wearing that all those hours. It must be really hot behind there, and I really feel bad for you. And they will respond to the empathy, and they'll say, it's absolutely awful. I wish this was over. I can't breathe. Because they'll rise to the empathy. And so I'll say, well, I call everybody my levels. You know what, my love, this first chance you get, on your breaks and when there's nobody in the store, you go and take that thing off. It's probably not good for you. And they'll smile and say, promise I will. This could be the very same person that if you try to shove information down their throat, you'll get it really vicious. So it's all about how you make them feel. It's not going to be what you tell them. They aren't going to consider it. It's a very, I always say, it's kind of ingenious, it's such a hidden thing. And to be able to talk to people rationally, it is hard for people, but it will always be. So being their community and being their safety, being their safe place. Like people will ask me often about families. This has really done a lot of splitting up of families and so on. And I will say there's lots of other things to base your family relationships on than this stuff. And what did you base them on before? And so was it your kids? Was it, your family get-togethers? You need to get back to whatever it was that you based them on before, because you're not getting through to them cognitively, and the chances that you're going to cause long-term damage is really high. And make sure that you're nurturing those relationships in healthy ways, because that's the only way that somebody is going to see you as a safe place or a safe person. Well, this person cares about me. This person loves me. And so when things start to erupt for them, that's the place they're going to head. You'll get through a lot faster in how you make them feel than you ever will in what it is that you're trying to tell them. You can throw the odd comment in here and there. They know where you stand. I mean, don't hide that, but just be careful how you do that.
Well, it's interesting when a point that what you brought up there about the things that we base our relationships on, that has dramatically changed in the last year and a half. 100%. Almost no conversation in the home is what it was a year and a half or 2 years ago. It's again all about adapting and improvising and dealing with the events at hand, the abnormal events at hand.
Right.
And at the same time, people are being led down this path of change and adaptation to technology, where the base of our value system is being placed more and more and more on our digital space than it is on our real world value. So we're spending more time learning to communicate and operate in the digital space to please those relationships, and now those relationships are making themselves into the home and completely dividing the reality of what people are trying to cope with, and they have no idea. They're losing every idea of how to deal with things at home,
with real relationships. You are so dead on with that one, and if it's something I find really distressing for people, because especially for our young people, because internet relationships are not intimate relationships. They aren't. All they really do is reaffirm someone's isolation. So these are not meaningful relationships, and so we have all these kids growing up without any skills, and they lie. Many of them, just can't tell the difference between the two because of 24/7. They're on the computer, and that's how they're conducting they can be anything they want when they're sitting behind a screen. They can do anything that they want. They just don't realize you can't do that in real life. And so you have this pathology kind of developing, it's almost getting to the point where they actually feel safer sometimes behind that computer screen than they actually do in trying to nurture real life relationships. It's a very disturbing disturbing thing that I'm watching happening, especially to young people and their inability to have meaningful relationships.
I'm seeing it happening through every demographic of society. I'm talking to people here now, and as lockdowns are lifted, people are getting called back to work, and they're calling me there, and they're going, "Oh my God, I don't know how to leave my home." They're literally having panic attacks at the thought of leaving their home now and going out and function in society. That is life driven by trauma.
It is really interesting that you say that, because I actually had a client just the other day, and she's a very gifted lady, and she was very gifted in creating community circles, which is what we should. Community is extremely important in the healing of trauma. So because it's regulating, that relationships help us feel safe and so on. And I had told my MLA at one point, he said, what did I envision? And I said, well, you need to have communities within communities. But unfortunately, that means you're going to have to go against your government to do that. But the interesting thing was, she had started at various points because she was a 70s kid. And when she was raised, young mothers had all kinds of help. Don't worry, we'll come with you, go and get your groceries and so on. Well, she said she tried to start something. She was worried about young mothers, so she wanted to start something. She said it didn't last, because she said it wound up being, well, it didn't last. And many of the mothers couldn't be bothered to come out of their homes. And she said, I don't understand it. And I said, I do. I was like, I understand it. I said, technology is doing some really horrible things to our head. It's not just, it seems to also be, it's really affecting our level of intelligent thinking and coping and growing and so on. Like at one time, Wayne, you could probably relate, when I was growing up, you never saw such a thing on television as a reality show. And if somebody dared to put something on there where somebody was walking around in the bathroom, we'd have all been in an uproar going, you're kidding, right? Well, now you're glued to it.
We have millions and millions of people living their lives vicariously through, what is it, The Bachelor or The Bachelorette or Survivor, or they've completely replaced their existence with this, and now they're doing that in the digital space. Kids have been doing it in video games, and we talk a lot about in the discourse community about cognitive dissonance, and we use that term in referring to people that are not accepting our willingness to give them information. They're just not accepting it. What they're not realizing is, through all of this digital space time spent, and our identities being transferred to this digital space, is recreating that same cognitive dissonance in a different way back to us, where kids are not seeing humans as humans. They're seeing they're seeing life as a video game, and they're becoming emotionally disconnected to it, and they're more invested in the relationships across their device than they are in the real world around them. And this isn't just kids anymore.
It isn't. And even the adults that I see, sometimes the ladies will say, I leave here, Michelle, I always feel euphoric for about 4 days. And I said, what, then you crash? And they say, yeah. I said, they said, is that normal? I said, for now it's normal. But the thing is the only thing that's making them feel euphoric is the fact that I've given them permission to be human. And they met somebody that says, I'm on your side. I've got your back, and and I'm going to offer you some independence, and strengthen some of your resilience and so on. And it always surprises me that it's been so long since those have been so badly battered and damaged and bruised, even basic resilience skills, that it actually makes them feel euphoric until they have it for themselves and they're not dependent on me giving it to them, then they're fine. But to be so battered in basic resilience skills to be able to handle adverse life events is a sad state of affairs. And that's where I always start, is building the resilience, because they're not even equipped to be able to deal with those traumatic events until they have the ability, have the resilience to be able to deal with them. You can't even start there.
Without community, it's going to be impossible for people to even learn them or relearn them again. This is what one of the most important parts of community is. Community fills in the gap of knowledge, wisdom, and ability that we don't have readily at our availability, and this is what helps us thrive and overcome things. When we have community, I mean, I'm old enough to remember we would go to the aunts and uncles' houses to learn things or to have discussions because they knew or they remembered. And this was, or it was the neighbor, or there was somebody that was always there to help understand and get through. And so we didn't need those coping skills, and we had generally enough. We were taught, how to avoid peer pressure and bullying and some of those things. But those became very, very minuscule lessons because we didn't need them. We lived in a very civilized world, and now we're kind of got the deer in the headlight thing going on, and nobody knows what to do, as you were speaking about Frozen. And that has so much to do with the loss of community, as you said, and you're going to get to your politician. He's going to have to go against the politics if we're going to fix this, because it's community.
It is, and you even take a lady who likes to knit. The first thing I'll ask, is there a knitting club around here? Because it's really important to have that community and that thing. But you don't go into a community, for example, and say, the neighbor is bringing home their mother-in-law and she's got asthma, so we want everybody to quit their jobs and shut down their businesses. Don't send your kids to school. For God's sake, wear a mask if you're cutting your lawn. That's not something that, and somebody said, well, Michelle, that's ridiculous. No neighborhood does that. I said, we just did it. We just did that. And when you put it into the category of a neighborhood, you can see the absolute ridiculousness of such a thing. So it isn't just about the trauma itself and driving people, that initial threat to safety. And if somebody's been traumatized before, it doesn't have to be the same trauma. The brain is not going to separate those traumas out. You only have to make them feel the same. Powerless, their safety threatened, and they're right into traumatic reaction. It's all about how they feel. So you don't have to have the same trauma. So they can present that threat to safety, and then the continual driving of it home. And you have decisions made and so on that are actually driven by that aren't even reasonable. They're not even making sense. And then to top it all off, the things that are healing in life, which is community, they are the people who in a community, when somebody brings a sick mother home, say, what can we do for you? Do you need somebody to go get groceries? Can we drop the kids off at school? Can we have somebody take care of your business? It's our safety, and because we're invested in our communities. Our doctors, our scientists, our police officers should all be seen as a place of safety. So what happened was, not only was the threat to safety done, the driving of the fear, they leveled all the places where we go to feel safe and go for healing. That was leveled. Everybody became irrelevant. And the only carrot of safety that was offered came from the government. It was continually moving. Nobody could get hold of it. It's kind of ingenious, you're not just traumatizing, but you just leveled anything that would heal.
Every bit of safety, when we couldn't provide it from ourselves or our family, then we would go to our community and then to our municipality. Absolutely. And then to our province, and it's all been absolutely destroyed, leveled, as you stated. That is such a profound statement is all of our safety networks have
Right.
been destroyed. So what is left but trauma? No matter where people
Right.
turn, that there is no safety available. And then they tried to dangle this magic carrot floating around in front of us, as you said, and now that's not safe either. Now that's becoming even more and more horrific.
Mhm.
And this, how are we going to process our way out of this? One of the things when you and I first talked on the phone, we talked about the masks. Even if, and you said something to me that was so profound. You said even if they take them away tomorrow, and they're taking them away this week. Tell us what is going to happen.
Nothing. No, it isn't truly. I mean, when you have people, I mean, some will, yes, but I mean, when you have people driven with fear like that, just they're not going to feel safe just because somebody tells them to feel safe. Because you're trying to convince them cognitively that they're safe. I have a friend down in El Paso, Texas, and when they lifted all their restrictions, I said, so how's it going down there with all the restrictions lifted? He said exactly what you said was going to happen. They're all still wearing masks. Businesses won't let people in without a mask. And I said, well, how can they do that if everything's been lifted? Their business, they can do what they want. He said people are depressed. They're still driving their cars alone wearing a mask. And it's like, so, and Florida, although much has been lifted and there's a lot of people that aren't, you're still seeing a lot that are as well. And so you're seeing it in Florida. And I said, I had told someone in an interview, this is precisely what you're going to see. And the reason is because you can't deal with fear trapped in the system like that, in the nervous system. You can't deal with it cognitively. And so tell them they're safe until the cows come home. It isn't going to make them feel safe.
It's going to be the things that the real world things that actually make us safe, community, family. Those
Exactly.
are the only way that we're going to be able to process our way out of that.
We shut down people's faith groups, their churches, all the places where they went, where they got support and caring, and where you could have some thought patterns going around that were more grounded, and we shut it all down. I mean, what does a person who's traumatized do when suddenly they shut your hospitals down and you can't, or someone who's a drug addict can't get hold of his counselor anymore, or someone who's all of these people who not everybody survives the experience of trauma. This is a huge concern of mine. We had something like 7 or 8 men in medicine who died of suicide, except for one, all were in their early 30s. And that hit me extremely hard. And I thought, they said, well, we understand that, this whole COVID phenomenon and everything that's happening is affecting them. And so we're going to bring in extra support. I said, why don't you just stop doing what's affecting them? Like, that's, to lose young men like that, it hit me really hard. I was quite upset by that. So not everybody survives the experience of trauma, and children who are traumatized in the way that we're traumatizing them now, when they hit, maybe 30 or so, that's usually the golden age, and something happens and cracks open that old trauma, we're going to have a whole nother crisis going on. But by that time, we will have forgotten what we did to cause it. And everybody will going, well, we don't know what's going on.
And these people that are orchestrating all of this, they've already moved on to the next wave of trauma that they're inflicting on us, and this is where we're seeing the development of medical apartheid and the vax debate and the division of that, and now the variants and the boosters, and this is a perpetual cycle that if we allow them to, they're going to carry on with.
Right. And the traumatized have had all of their safety places leveled, and the only place that they're viewing as offering safety is the government. And that's what they did before they started the medical apartheid. Get everybody looking at the government for their safety. First of all, scare the daylights out of them, traumatize them, drive the fear home, level anything that could help or cure or contribute to a sense of safety. And what if people got left? Now you've got people literally heading for things that that they're not like, for example, the vaccines. Well, for pity's sake, do some research. Think about this. Wait, like I wait and see what's, is this safe? Is the FDA going to approve them? Just think about, they're just blindly running. And that was set up initially once they leveled the communities and any help, and it got them looking to the government. That's when, that's when they brought in.
I've been saying for a while now, I believe that this has been a long drawn out war on community and family. Anything that where our society used to structure itself on, our morals, ethics, and values, our family units, our communities, that's been under assault for a very long time.
Yeah.
And this disruption now is part of a bigger thing, and I say this not as a conspiracy theorist, but as somebody that spent 20 years in marketing. That when I saw this stuff roll out, there was no way that this was a natural chain of events. The way they hit the ground running with the billions of dollars of marketing, this was well planned out, well strategized, well thought out, regardless of going into any of those kinds of things. So understanding this, that and this is to help arm the people of this that are watching here today, is to understand that this process of creating this trauma is not over. It is nowhere near over. It is just beginning, and this is where I see this as the tsunami. The bomb has been dropped. The wave is growing and building, and is going to continuously be fed by this propaganda machine, whatever people want to call it. And the only way we're going to be able to do this is exactly, you've given us so many tools here today, through empathy and emotion versus reason and common sense, through community and self-empowerment. And people will understand that courage, showing courage, inspires courage. This is how we get our communities back.
It's true. It's true. It does inspire courage, and it does inspire, some grounding and emotional regulation and so on. And it inspires people. It gives them resilience. It gives them their resilience back, and so that they can bounce back from but with rats, even they were able to elicit a fear response in rats just using carbon dioxide. And so when they elicited the fear response in rats using carbon dioxide, they also decided to add a secondary stimulus, which was, say, for example, the smell of vanilla. So they pour vanilla in there. And when they came back months later, they didn't have to use the carbon dioxide. They only had to use the smell of vanilla, and they sent them right into a fear response. And so please, people, understand this. They can turn this on and off, that wheel, once that's trapped in your system. You have got to start identifying that fear and saying it out loud. This is fear. I'm not tolerating this. You have got to start, and I'm not saying that that's a cure-all, because trauma isn't, I have no 5 easy steps for you. But knowing, the more you know about it, the more control you're going to have, the more education you have. I do a lot of psychoeducating just so that people can have some power over what they're experiencing.
I think whether you realize it or not, you've given us a lot of tools. I mean, most of us have heard the acronym FEAR, false evidence appearing real. That's where we can start with our own toolboxes. Is this real? Is this fear real? Identifying that fear is going to immediately take you to the next step. And this is instinctual. Goes right to our core of our being. When we understand the fear, our cognitive abilities come back. So doing some research when we have a fear, it may not get you the answer you want, but it's going to help you deal with some of those things. Then realizing that it's an emotional thing that you're dealing with, less so than a rational thing.
Right. Making decisions as well. If you make a decision, no matter how simple it is, or have a goal, and you go ahead with that goal, make the decision. If that turns out to be wrong, there's very few things in life we can't correct. So if we have to sit back later and say, gee, I think I could have done that one better. Okay, well, that's life. but actually following through with those will also help you to reconnect to the cognitive part of the brain.
Awesome. Just before you head out here, and I'm gonna cut this show short tonight, folks for that are out there watching it. And I kind of warned Michele that I was going to do this because we can literally talk for hours, and I know we would have a lot to say. But I'd like to bring her back again sometime really soon, and perhaps with another special guest. I'm still waiting for confirmation on that. But to work and expand on some of these things, identifying trauma is going to help us understanding that it's an emotional response, not a cognitive one. These are, as I said, some amazingly powerful things that can help the lay person just make that process of living through life, getting through life, just a little bit easier to do, and you'll start bearing fruit from your discussions rather than vinegar.
Yeah.
What do you want folks to think about as we're getting close to the end here of our discussion here today, Michele?
If I could, I'm sure there's lots of things I want folks to think about, but I think when I first started speaking out about trauma and its relation to our current circumstance, I was absolutely floored at the amount of people that said, "Oh my God, we were looking for answers, and there they are." So the only thing that I could tell you is to be as informed as you possibly. Watch where you're going for that information, by the way, but be informed as you possibly. Don't get sidetracked, but be informed as you possibly can, because the more information. I do seminars all the time. Trauma 101 and so on, and you can. We'll tell you how you can get hold of me to find out when the next one, but be as informed as you possibly can.
For those of you guys that are looking to learn more about Michele's work and where to reach her, that's the website there, traumapractitioner.com. She's a wealth of wisdom, and I'm so grateful to have you on here to begin to have some of these things addressed, because we've been so lost, and again, we've been lost in the information and understanding. And I think people are moving past that fear, and they're at the point where now, how do we deal with this? Where do we move from here? We want to get to moving back towards living again. And conversations like this are really going to be able to help us expand that understanding and knowledge. So grateful for your wisdom and sharing with us today.
My pleasure.
So there you guys got got the, I lost it there, my bad, but the website address to reach out to Michele, and send us some questions, conversations that you have out there in the audience, and we'll put something together special really soon. Okay. So thank you for taking your time this afternoon to join us, Michele. I hope you have an amazing weekend. I'm sure we'll see you out and about there. You're a face people are looking for. So thank you. Keep up the fight.
Appreciate it so much, Wayne. Thanks so much, and I'll be looking forward to coming on again.
Awesome. Bye for now. Have a great evening. All right, guys. Amazing lady there. She lives in Victoria, actually. She's a BC lady. She gave us a lot to think about and a lot of stuff this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring her on today. We've been talking for a while, and I think we needed folks to get a little bit more understanding of where we were at with the medicine, that we could start to apply that knowledge and information back to our communities. And how do we heal? Where do we go from here? Humanity is going to take us through this. I've been saying that since the beginning. Love and humanity is the answer. It is always the answer. And with that, folks, I'm going to leave you this evening with a little bit of hope and love, and a little bit more perspective and knowledge. And we've got some pretty crazy stuff that you guys wouldn't believe right now coming up real soon. We're going to hear from all of the doctors again, coming up in a couple of panel discussions, and some other events that we're putting together to continue this re-education of people towards the truth. All right, guys, I love y'all. Stay Canadian, stay strong, love your neighbor, your family, and your community, and let's make Canada, Canada again.